I'm Josh Murtha, Josh Murtha Insurance, do health insurance for individuals and businesses. You can reach me at the office at 404-919-0864 or online at www.joshmurthainsurance.com. So for those who don't know me, I'm Josh Murtha Insurance, and I do individual health insurance as an agency as well as employee benefits. I'm actually going to touch on both because both apply when talking to self-employed small business owners and small companies. To give a little background, since everybody else kind of did, I actually have a culinary degree, worked multiple years in the food service industry, and I think that leads to my success in this industry is that service aspect. We want to go above and beyond for my clients to make sure that they're taken care of. Also taking educational approaches to some of the other colleagues we have here to helping people understand. It's about breaking it down. Everybody's situation is different and unique, and it's looking at all those differences. We actually work hand in hand with pretty much everybody up here to kind of come to that conclusion. So there's aspects of what I do that play into what Rhonda does, and Cynthia does, and Kelly does, and many other professionals. And so working together with partners to make sure we're doing the best job for our clients is paramount. So, and as you see here, two of the things I like to touch on when it comes to employee benefits or in health insurance stuff is going to lead right into what Cynthia talked about recruiting and retention in today's labor market. And see, these are some stats that I've actually pulled predominantly from health, from HRM companies. So it shows that I guess something's a little weird here. 80% of workers would choose a job with more benefits over a 30% raise. Okay, and that's understanding that part of your compensation is those benefits. So if you're a smaller company, that's part. It's not just a pay rate. Those benefits play a factor. 66% of workers think benefits are the most crucial factor when choosing a job. So again, people want to know what benefits your company's offering if you're looking to recruit before they'll ever even talk to you. It's again not just about pay rate. 61% of employees will take a lower paying job that offers a more robust. Again, this was spoken to earlier about smaller companies and trying to compete with these larger firms when it comes to these benefits. 62% of employees under 50 wouldn't consider a company if they didn't offer voluntary benefits. So it's not just the medical, it's the dental, the vision, the accident, the other coverages that are still available. And then, again, retention. So 78% of employees would say they would stay with a company because they like their benefits, right? So if you offer a good package, and benefits are more than just medical, dental, vision. That's PTO, vacation time, sick leave, all these other factors that go into it. It's not just about insurance. 49% of employees are likely to seek new opportunities because of confusion or dissatisfaction in their benefit scheme. So what are you offering? What is available? Do you have a broker or agent or an HR representative that can explain these coverages and what they mean and why they're there and how they help are important factors in this. I would say that I've done a lot of meetings with employees that we do benefits for and just sitting down with them when they come on board to go, okay, here's what this, here's your options, here's what this is, how can I help you make that right decision? Does this benefit make sense for you? It solves this problem. And so helping them understand what the business is doing, what these benefits are here for, so they can take advantage of the ones that they need. So, and again, from SHRM, health-related benefits are the number one. You see, from this slide, it's not just the medical benefits, retirement planning, the leave, working benefits. Well, how's your schedule? Remote work, telework, family-friendly, professional, financial, so not necessarily retirement, but how do we stretch our budget? How do we do these things? Wellness. Some companies do education benefits, so money to help cover college or continuing education credits, those sorts of things. So it's much more when we talk about benefits than the health that I specifically work in. So to try to keep this as simple as possible, there's different levels and group sizes that I, as an agent, kind of group everybody into. Okay. Now, and most carriers will go the 2 plus, or 2 to 50 and 51 plus. So I look more in essentially these 4 categories. So there's options for the self-employed single, sole proprietor, one employee, just the owner. These are not groups. As much as I get calls, hey, I want a business, I want to put together a company health insurance plan. That's not what you think it is. You're on an individual plan, and then I'm working with these professionals up here to help find out, well, what makes sense for you? What's your medical history? What can you qualify for? What's your tax structure? So that's going to play an implication again as the pricing and plans available. I talked a lot about health savings accounts and working with Kelly on those. Do those types of plans help you based on your medical needs, your financial situation, your tax situation, to help people understand what makes sense? And again, that's just the medical piece. What other coverages do we need? What other problems do we need to solve? What other family medical histories are involved that we need to look at protecting you financially? Again, because when it comes to benefits or insurance in general, it's a protection, it's risk mitigation. And so what areas do we need to fill those gaps in to protect you where you want and need that protection? So at the 2 plus is where we get into actual employee benefits. This is your company's purchasing a plan for you, the owner, maybe not even you, maybe just your employees, and putting together some sort of benefit package there. This is where we do get the carriers involved, and we're looking at essentially a master policy with individual certificates issued to each enrolled employee. In the 2 to 10 space, it's quite difficult. The 2 to 10 does not have a lot of options. This has to do with carriers more than anything. Carriers will not take certain minimum numbers. Certain carriers are like, we won't take anything less than 5. We won't take anything less than 10. We require a minimum of 5 enrolled on a particular line. Or in this 2 to 10, okay, we can do a medical plan, but we only get one option. Then the complication is, well, does that option meet the needs of the employees? Because that's always the problem. Figuring out what works for the employer, what the employer can afford, and what's seen as of value to the employees. Okay? If we don't find that happy middle ground, then it doesn't work for anybody. Okay? So, but look at it. You got a staff of 5. You've got a 26-year-old. You've got that's just coming off a parent's plan. You have an 18-year-old still covered under a parent's plan. A couple 30-year-olds with young kids. A couple in their 40s, middle-aged kids, and you got couples in their 50s who kids get ready to go to college. All are going to have different medical needs or different desires in protection levels. You could have the one with complicated medical conditions going on that you can't understand from an HR perspective or ask onboarding, and then some that are healthy. They're going to be looking for completely different plan designs. So it's harder to place these 2 to 10, but there are things we can do. In this case, again, it's about customization to the client, what their needs are, what they're looking to do. In some cases, the 2 to 10, we somehow treat like the self-employed, to where we help the individual sign medical coverage, and then we look into those supplemental benefits, maybe dental, vision, life insurance, and stuff like that, provided by the company. There's some different creative things we can get into, but it becomes a unique situation. Up until this point, we're still not required by law to offer any benefits, okay? And then as we grow into that 10 to 50, at this point, I generally say at 10, then you definitely want to start getting into it. You're really trying to grow. You're really trying to recruit. You want to make sure you keep your top talent. And so at this point, we definitely want to be offering medical, dental, vision, and any other lines that make sense for the business. And we can start as small as just a 3. We can start with just medical. We can start with whatever makes sense for that business. But up until this, again, this is a completely optional, just highly recommended. Now, at the point you get to the 50 employees and full-time equivalents, which again comes into the other aspects of classifications, because once you hit 50 full-time equivalents, so whether it's 30 full-time and then a bunch of part-timers, once you do the math, you end up at 50. Now you're mandated by law to provide benefits. Okay, and so that's when we have the most options. We're coming into multiple plans. So maybe we go with one carrier, which is pretty much across the board, but then we're going, okay, we're going with this style plan to offer to these types of employees that want this coverage, this middle of the road plan, maybe this super nice plan. And we can come up with strategies from the employer side to go, well, what makes sense from an employer contribution? Do we flat amounts? Do we contribute just the employee? Do we contribute for the employee, the spouse, the kids? And on what lines do we do? What lines do we offer? And tax implications on some of those lines. Because offering benefits can impact finish off with this kind of slide here as far as some of the medical options. Again, part of my job as a broker is sitting in and figuring out what the goals are. Is it a recruiting issue? Is it a retention issue? What can you afford? Where do we want to start? Sometimes it's something very basic. Sometimes people want to kind of jump right in the deep end and kind of do everything. So it really depends. But medical options, when it comes to the medical piece has the most compliance. You've got the government compliance, you've got your requirements regarding participation. But major medical options fall into essentially one of three categories. They're fully insured. That's where you go to Blue Cross or United or whoever, and you pay a premium to the insurance company. The insurance company takes all the risk. These are community rated and generally some of the most expensive options, but can be good to some degree. Not generally my go-to unless we have some issues within the group or company. Self-insured is the next one. This is where your big companies are. Not trying to throw names, but the federal government, your multinational companies. They're essentially self-insured. Okay? They're putting money into a pot, just try to simplify this, for your claims. They're paying somebody like Blue Cross, the third party administer everything, and they're going and buying stop loss insurance, saying if the amount of money we spend, it exceeds this dollar amount, now an insurance company's getting it. One of the newer and probably more popular options is a level funded plan. This is essentially self-insured products for the smaller companies, where you're paying to an insurance company essentially, like a fully insured, but getting all the elements of a self-insured, like all of them. So self-insured and level funded are underwritten plans, meaning they are looking at just your company and the employees, projected claims of the company, versus fully insured, that's community rated, looking at maybe every company in the state of Georgia. Okay? Those are your major medical options. I say major medicals because these are the ones that essentially meet all the ACA requirements, full coverage, that sort of thing. Okay? Then we get into non-major medical options that are still qualified. And these are becoming increasingly popular. In my opinion, as an agency, these are much harder to replace, and some of which I don't even recommend. So the first one would be MEC plans, or MET plans as they're referred to. They're minimal such requirement. They do meet regulations, but they can be pretty restrictive. Maybe they're partially indemnity. They're paying, hey, we're going to give you 3 doctor's office visits. We pay $50. Employees want to hook for the rest of it. So they meet the regulations. They're within compliance, but you need to understand what you're buying. There's a reason why this option is cheaper. And then we get into what's again gaining popularity is HRAs. Okay, so the two biggest ones are ICHRA, and QSEHRA is where the employer defines a contribution. I'm going to give towards every employee $500 a month. Okay, depending on which HRA it is structured in, will depend on the income. So here's 500, John Smith. Go talk to an agent, go buy a health insurance plan. We'll reimburse you up to $500 of that cost. That money can go towards premiums, potentially out-of-pocket expenses, and your co-pays and that sort of thing. Depending on which one, depends on how that's going to impact the individual when they're going to purchase one. With HRAs, just again, keep this as simple as possible. It's kind of an all or none. Either what you're offering as an employer is affordable by government standards, and therefore if they go through Georgia Access or any exchange, they'll look at that calculation and go, okay, what your employer is offering is affordable, we're not going to do anything. So the exchange then does not offer any kind of subsidies or tax credits or base premium tax credits. The next one is the qualified small employer HRA, so this is for sub 50, and it's more of an offset. So, okay, company's providing $500, you're qualifying for $100,000 on the marketplace. So 500 from the employer, now only 500. We're going to cap it at 1,000. I don't see a whole lot of places where these come into play. In my opinion, there are brokers out there that do push these heavily. I think there's better ways to do it. So these are the options. Everything is unique, and having a conversation like with most of these professionals, everything is tailored. And so sitting down and understanding what we're looking to do, your employee demographics, what they need, what they want, are big conversation points. I know as a broker, when I sit down with the different companies, and I do enrollments, so I'll sit down, I'm talking to your HR professional, I'm talking to the COO, I'm talking to the owner, depending on the size of the business, trying to understand, do you have benefits in place? I like to talk to all of the employees as well. So say, hey, as we're going through talking these options, does this work for you? Does this not? Is there a plan you'd like to see? Would you like to see a better dental? Do you not need dental? What's going on here? So that I can advise my HR professionals, COOs, and owners as to are we putting together a package that makes sense for your employees? Because again, it all comes back to recruiting and retention. How do we make sure we help you keep your employees that are good? How do we make sure you can bring on new ones as you need? Any questions?
You work with any healthcare companies?
I can. So there's several health shares out there. The biggest thing I tell everybody about health shares is they're not insurance. And so insurance is essentially a legal binding contract. When you're dealing with the faith-based health shares, not that they're bad, because there are several that I work with, uh, they will tell you they're not insurance. They make no guarantees to pay, and they're not regulated by the insurance commission, for the most part. So I mean, there is some overlap, which is why they use different terminology. So you got to be real cautious. It's really about the financial standing of the HRA, of the health share, as to their quality generally. There are a few safer ones out there, but I know there has been companies that have not done what they said they're going to do. There have been companies that have put my clients at risk, business, bankruptcy, and then they made no guarantees to pay. So the client could potentially be hooked. So again, not that they're bad, just understanding what you're buying. So education is a big piece of it, understanding, well, okay, I'm paying half price. What am I giving up? What protections? What coverages? Um, those are important factors to consider. So,
What does a company like Aflac fall under?
so Aflac's going to be a supplemental. So Aflac's not a medical. So
Okay.
that's where the accident, hospital indemnity, I'd have to look at their different companies. Aflac's just the most known because of the duck and the advertising. There's other companies that do just what they do.
Okay.
So it's not that what they do is unique to them. Their structure's a little bit different. But they fall under what's considered worksite benefits, okay? Which is essentially everything but the medical. So medical's the big piece of compliance. Everything else is technically supplemental or what's considered worksite benefits.
What kind of company falls under like MEC and ICHRA?
So there's a bunch of companies in all of these categories that you have heard of
Okay.
and haven't heard of. Um, Philadelphia America is one of the ones that does MEC plans, but they're just one. I think it's Philadelphia Pan America. There's so many different names and acronyms out there. There's a lot of different companies, which is where it comes down to understanding what you're buying. There's companies that I get approached with all the time. Hey, please represent ours. Please talk to our clients, your clients about these plans. And I will sit down with any carrier that wants to talk to me. I'll either A, learn about a new product that's either come around or been around I haven't heard of or haven't had a use for. And I'll either learn about them or learn why I shouldn't. But I'll sit down with any carrier to talk with them to get an understanding of what they offer.
Okay.
Because I won't represent companies or I won't recommend companies to clients that I don't feel that provide adequate protection for my clients. Ultimately, insurance, regardless of the line, is a financial product. It's about protecting against a loss, protecting against that risk. And so if I don't feel that that product adequately does that, I won't represent. And I will talk to my clients about it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Josh.
Well, I do personally use Josh. Normally, I try to do everything on my own, but it was very helpful when I actually had somebody sit down with me and help me figure out what I needed to do. I've actually had a doctor that I couldn't use because she didn't take my insurance, and after sitting down with Josh, I was able to find the insurance that will take my doctor. So sometimes having a representative to assist is so much easier.
Thank you, Josh.